One of my friends asked me to help him with the repair of one of his front porch roof support columns. The house is from the 20s, and when I tried to find the cladding you see in this shot, it quickly became apparent that it was going to be quite a challenge. What this video is going to focus on is the replacement of the horizontal cladding that you can see with the V-groove in the middle of it. So this is a sample of the siding that we have to replace. It's a tongue and groove, and it's 4 inches, not including the tongue, from side to side, and it has a groove down the middle of it. This is one of the pieces I was able to salvage, and you can see that there is a lot of rot to it. Actually, the section that was over here was in such bad shape, I cut it away so that I had at least a serviceable area where I can do some measurements on it. So that's what it is that we've got to replace. I'll change the camera angle so we get a better view of it. So this is a profile, and you can see its tongue, which is rotted away and is gone, and groove, and the V groove down the middle of it. So I went about trying to find a replacement for this, and I went through a number of lumber yards and big box stores and small box stores, and I didn't find anything exact. I found one thing that was close that maybe would have been acceptable, but they had no inventory, and furthermore, the vendor told me that we have no idea when we're going to get a replacement for this. So we are now faced, or I'm faced with the task of replacing this and making the replacement. So some interesting features of this V is 30 degrees in this direction. So I looked around for some router bits. Effectively, it would mean a 120-degree router bit to get that V cut properly, and I couldn't find any online in the normal places I buy my tooling. And so, yeah, what are you going to do with it? So the owner of the house has had work done previously by a man who works in a hardware store, and he's an accomplished woodworker. And when he was asked what to do about something like this, he said, how you accomplish this is you're going to do it in 2 pieces. That makes perfect sense. So what the plan is to get 2 2-inch pieces, because it's 4 inches edge to edge, and the bottom of the V is centered. So I'm going to take a piece 2 inches wide. I am going to put it up against the fence on my table saw. I'm going to slope the blade to 60 degrees, effectively giving me that 30-degree cut. And I'll do both sides like that. And what I am then going to do is I have a tongue and groove kit, if you would, for my router. And I am going to then cut, being that I've got to cut the groove for this, and I've got to make it the same distance from there to there, because I've got existing pieces on this column that I've got to mate the new pieces with. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut grooves on both sides of the pieces, and I'm going to join them together with a spline. And I'm going to cut a groove over here, and then I'm going to stick, again, a spline into it to recreate the tongue that's over on this side. So that's the plan, and the following is the procedure I use to get there. So this is the router bit kit that I've got, and it includes cutter heads 1/8, 5/32, 3/16, and 1/4 inch. So when you combine the cutter heads, you can get up to 23/32 inch of a groove. So this is going to be more than enough to do what I need. So I want to get an idea exactly what this measure is in here. And I just so happen to have one of these beautiful devices. So let's go about getting a measurement in here. And I'm going to bring it in, and it's going to be snug, but it's not going to be tight because that wood's rotted, and so I could easily go into the wood. So that's going to be good enough, and I'll change camera angles now to be able to get the reading. Okay, so the reading I'm getting is, you can see we're past, it's 0.2. There's 3 ticks, that means 75. And it seems it lines up closest with the 15 or the 14, one of those two. But, you know, we're splitting hairs at that point. So in reality, then we come out to 0.290. So if we look at this little device, if we go 282, 2812, 930 seconds, or 1964ths. So let's go with the 930 seconds. So that's going to work, and I will show you in a second why. So here are 2 of the cutter options that I've got in this cutter head. One of them is 1/8, and one of them is 530 seconds. 1/8 and 530 seconds is 930 seconds, which seems to be what that groove is. So I'm going to set these 2 cutters up in the router, and I'm going to do a test cut, and I'm going to measure it, and I think that's really where it's going to be. And at the end of the day, that should get me almost exactly what it is that's there. So this is a piece of cedar that I picked up at one of the local building supply outlets, and I have put it through the jointer on the bottom side and planed it down to the correct thickness. This is about 5.5 inches, and what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to cut off the rounded sections on both sides to make it nice and square, so that it's going to be easy to machine.
A federal election that has done little, if anything, to shift the balance of power in the House of Commons. The Liberals are returning with another minority government.
So here's the board all nicely squared up. I'm going to rip it into 2-inch strips and then take it over to the router table to cut the grooves. Okay, so I have installed the cutter heads, and this is a zoom in. Well, let's zoom out. So, okay, so this is the router table, and this is the cutter head. And what I'm doing is I'm setting it up so that it's the same as the existing piece, because I've got existing panels or of these shingles that are on the wall, and I got to mate with them. So, and you know what? It's got to be somewhere, so it might as well be just the way it's supposed to be. So that was the bottom, and I'm getting impact on the top. What am I getting impact on? All right, there is debris in there. Okay, so one of the things that one always has to take into account for is that's the groove I'm trying to simulate. And I may work, you see, it's rotted in a lot of places. Let me zoom this out. So I really don't even have a good place other than the very mouth of it right there, where both sides are in reasonable shape. So that's what I have to deal with. So going back here, I think I'm all right with that. That's just some of the old paint that was in there. And that one's doing clear. Let me put this down an eyelash. Okay, so there I'm rubbing. Go up an eyelash, sit like that. Let's bring this. That feels good also. All right, so there's my place. I'm going to lock that off at that point, and then I'm going to get this fixed because I was banging on this one. So let's do that right now. One of the nice things about this table is I've got micro adjustments on both sides. So there's my micro adjustment, and I'm hitting it. There we go. Free pass. So that's where I'm going to lock this side off at. That should work just fine. I'll verify that with the piece that I'm going to do the test cut with, but that should work out okay. So I think we're ready. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a feather board going down here, and I can't get a feather board. Yes, I can. This is the double the size, so I can put a feather board in here. So I'm assuring myself that I'm going to be clean up against the fence and that my groove is going to be uniform throughout the cut. So here we go. Okay, so last comments. This side is rougher than this side. So this is going to be my top side that I wish to work with. And so that's facing up because that's the way the sample panel was. All right, let's make some noise. Let's see how, well, all right, I'm going to take it over and I'm going to do some measuring and make sure that this is what it is that I want. So this is the sample groove I've cut. That's a 1/4 inch setup block. And there's very little play in that at all. So I'm not really sure what happened. I've got the correct cutter heads in there, but for some reason or other they're cutting slightly undersized, a 32nd of an inch to be precise. Now, is that a 32nd of a wiggle? Yeah, maybe it is. So here's the sample, and that's a serviceable end of the tongue, and it goes in. So I think I'll be good with that. I didn't like the depth. I measured the depth of it and it came out a bit shy, so I've done the adjustment. So I'm ready to go and do another test. Okay, so this is after 2 samples, the depth of cut, and critically the distance from the top here down to the beginning of the cut is right where it's supposed to be. The depth of cut can be variable because at the end of the day I'm putting a spline into it, so it doesn't really matter. But I went for an eyelash deeper than what exists on the sample panel or my old panel, so I should be okay. So again, good side up. We've got all our feather boards set up. Let's make some sawdust. Now, one thing important, one has to just swing the board like this to maintain the same height going down from there as going down from there, because that's the way it's supposed to be. So here we go. Side number 2. So I have tilted the blade to 60 degrees, and at that point I'm going to be cutting this part here. Now these are two sections, but I want to make this cut first. So the width of this is 1/2 inch. The depth of cut is 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to just take my piece and I'm going to just gently groove the end. And I'm going to work it until such time as I get my correct dimension. And then at that point, I'll be ready to run the whole thing. All right, so I am targeting for 1/8 of an inch. And you can see I've got an eyelash more to cut off. But I think that's going to do it. Now, I also said that the depth was 1/2 inch. And you can see half of that is 1/4, and we haven't got to 1/4 yet. So I'm going to creep out a wee bit more, and then I'm going to come back and measure both of them, and we'll see how it works. Okay, so I'm a snicker more than the 1/8, but I am at the 1/2. So that doesn't look so bad, actually. And, you know, actually, let's put this back. The angle looks good. It's that shallow angle, and it's nice clean. So, okay, I think I'm going to run the piece. It's good enough. So I'll set up to do the cut, and I'll show the cut. So here we go, the finished product. And let me just get this even. It's sort of even at the top. The grooves match up. It's sort of even at the bottom. It's hard to say because that's the tongue down on the bottom, and it's got rotted pieces in there. But, you know, at the end of the day, from a distance, I don't think anybody's going to be the wiser. They're probably going to be able to notice the change, because if my client doesn't strip all the old paint off or do a heavy sanding on it to get it off, you're going to see the difference in the thickness of the old paint that's on there. But as far as telling me that, yeah, you're going to be able to see a difference, it actually worked out pretty good. There you go. So the next part of this trick is to cut the splines. Now, this is a cutoff that I had from the original piece, and it is 3/4 inch thick. It almost looks square. It's a little more than 3/4 inch high, but I'll be able to get a couple of splined pieces out of this. I'm cutting 1/4 inch, so I'll get two. And once I get that, then I'll flip it on its side and I'll cut it to the exact dimension. Now, the depth of the groove was 5/16 of an inch, so 5/8 is times 2. So I'm going to make it a snicker under 5/8 of an inch, so that I'm not bottoming out, and that when I push these two pieces together and glue them, they are going to go together flush, and the spline is not going to get in the way of closing the joint. That will be shown soon. So here is the spline. And there's the fit. That's a nice fit. That'll glue well. Okay, so I know that works. Now I just got to get it cut to the correct width. And as I was saying, it would be a snicker less than 5/8. So that's the work to be done. So I had originally tried to use a featherboard, but my featherboard was too wide. So it's an eyelash less than 5/8 inch that I'm cutting, and the featherboard was more than 5/8 inch, so the blade was interacting with the featherboard. So this is a piece of 3/8 inch plywood I had lying around. It's going to keep the 1/4 inch thick piece down on the table saw, and the other featherboard is going to keep it up against the fence. So I'm going to go put a respirator on now because this is throwing dust like nuts. So I set the last shot all up, and I guess I hit the go button twice, and I started and stopped it without realizing it. So I don't have the shot of cutting this spline to its final width, but it got cut correctly. And as you can see, there's a wee bit of wiggle, which is exactly what I wanted. And so I'm now ready to glue these two pieces together. And that is going to be a fun exercise because it has to, you can see right now, let me do some zoom. Okay, so that's maximum zoom. But you can see down at the very bottom of the groove, that lines up really nicely. And so I am really wanting to keep that. And so therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp this down on the bench. And I will show you exactly in a minute. So the plan is that I am going to glue them in this fashion. I have already put packing tape down on the desk, so any glue squeeze out that may occur is not going to bond it to the desk. That would be fun, eh? Come back and find you can't rip it off the desk. Duh. Okay, so clamping calls, there are going to be 4 of them, and there'll be 4 clamps pulling them together, clamps pushing them down. All things being equal, this should work very well. So I'm going to get rid of those, and I'm going to do the glue up, and then at that point in time, I'll probably film the glue up. Why not? So here we go with the glue up. I'm using waterproof glue because this is going to be outside. Now we can clamp these down with some pressure to make sure everybody is going to be sitting at the correct level. Hallelujah. Oh yeah, there's squeeze out going on down there, and just a small amount on the top. This is the visible side, so I didn't want any squeeze out up here, because when he paints it, I don't want any splotches. I want it to be even. That, on the other hand, may or may not be a problem. I can see the joint where the packing tape is. You know, when in doubt. There. And I think it's all done. All the joints are nice and tight. Ha! It's nice when it works. So here's a close-up view of the two boards joined together at the end. The spline is quite visible, and you can see that the V joint has come together beautifully, and it's at the same level. So that worked out very well. So it's now time to cut the 45-degree bevels on each one of the corners. And so I measured the sample piece, and I got about 3/16. And so I've marked the corner there, and I am now setting up. The blade has been tilted to 45 degrees. You can see the feather boards and the guides are set up. And so I'm going to go take a very small sample at this point in time and have a look at it and judge whether it meets the needs, or it hits those marks that I've put on that wood. So that's what it looks like, and it's just an eyelash shy. So I'm going to tap the fence and I'm going to do the cut. That should be the answer to it. I'll do one small sample again and look at it, but I'm pretty sure that's all I'm going to need is one little tap, and that's going to be ready to go. So the second test worked out just fine. I am happy with the way it all worked out, so it's time to go. So next part is to glue this spline in place, and I have a knot in the spline, so I'm going to bury the knot in the groove. Waterproof glue again, and away we go. Okay. Now let's try and get this lined up properly. I missed it the last time. That looks... Okay. All right, that should do it. It's all in. It doesn't need a huge amount because the glue is going to be doing the bulk of the work. Just needs to get done. So that gets clamped, and then after that, I'm going to cut it to its exact width. I know I've got extra, so that's it. We leave it sit. So there it is. It's complete. And at the end of the day, it's not so bad, actually. There's the two of them right next to each other. So I think I'm happy with the way it is, and it's going to be difficult to see the difference once we get it up on the balcony. And like I said previously, I think the old paint versus the new paint is the thing that's going to really show more of a difference than any of the profiling. So there it is. Happy day. So there's the finished view. The owner took great trouble in getting a good sanding job done. He did caulking all around the joints to prevent any rot going forward. So this shows you that when you're faced with issues about trying to find moldings and sidings that don't exist anymore, it's a doable project. If you just go out and seek some professional help, break down the project into small components, and patiently work at them. Anyway, I hope this has helped somebody along the way. And I'd also like to comment that I do this video because I consume a great deal of YouTube woodworking videos, and this was my payback to the YouTube universe. Thanks for watching.